to develop at the major league level. Morte's been quite successful. Peraza's struggled a little bit. Now he's been injured. And he's been kind of stuck in a crappy situation in Cincinnati where they didn't really have confidence in him as a star. He didn't get the maybe development that he should have. Well, now things have changed. He's in Boston. Boston loves him. They've already said that he's going to be the primary backup at shortstop, the primary backup at third base, an outfield option, and at second base. I love Jose Peraza. I think he is exactly one of the people that I was talking about earlier. Someone you should be targeting, someone you should take a late-minute flyer on, and he can steal you 30 bases. I know we're not going to get that this year, but in a full season.
Oh, and he supposedly, I read the comments that his manager, I guess I heard you say it earlier, great minds seem to think alike. I like to see what managers are saying, don't you? Because they typically pencil in the lineup, and if they're penciling in the lineup, I like to know who they're liking to play. And the statements I heard out of Boston this week were that Peraza looks so good at second base. He looks good in the field. He looks good at the bat.
Right.
He's going to play. And he can be had for nothing. And that's you and me.
Exactly.
It's value. It's value. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants Yelich. Everybody wants Acuna. Yeah, but there's only one of those guys that I know of.
Right.
And so who do we get late in drafts that wins the league for you? Peraza.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, man. And that's why I love doing this. I've done this for, I've done this for like the last month now, and I've gone position by position and just talked about these guys at the end of the draft. That, it's great to talk about Jorge Soler or Odell Arenado or all these guys that you're going to get in the first 3 rounds. Well, those are going to dry up, and you're going to be like, oh, crap, who am I going to take now? Jose Peraza is a perfect example of someone who can really benefit your team.
So let's talk about more along those lines, Chappie. Let's talk about teams who score runs and have these players that can participate in that process. I don't want to talk about the Giants, okay? They're not going to score enough runs. I was doing a show with my brother and a friend of mine Sunday. We said we're going to do an hour. We spent 10 minutes talking about the Orioles, which it was my fault. But let's don't do that. Let's talk about teams who score runs and those players that can be drafted now, picked up off waivers, help you with your fantasy. And a team that I really like, I think I'm reading your mind, you do too. Let's stay in the East. Shall we talk about the Blue Jays for a moment? First, we don't know who they're going to play, but don't they have a few players deep in the fantasy twisting turn corridors that might help us win a fantasy league this year?
I mean, gosh, yes, absolutely. I'll tell you, I mean, we're kind of talking about the Lourdes Gurriels and the Bo Bichette's of the world. That's not what we're talking about here, right?
No.
We're talking about someone more like Kevin Biggio. Right?
There you go.
Yeah. So, someone who, here's another guy who's going to be multi-position eligible. He's going to be at second base. He's going to play in the outfield. He's got easy 20 homer, 20 stolen base potential, which is really not that easy to find these days. And he's going to be hitting at the top of that lineup, or at least in the middle of that lineup. And it's a lineup that, like you said, it's going to score a lot of runs on. I love Kevin Biggio.
I tell you another player I like on that team, and it's just he never seems to get to that level where I want him. But I love Randall Grichuk. Yeah. If you need an outfit, now depending on the depth of your league, if you're in a 10-team league, no, you're not going to need a Randall Grichuk. Okay, but if you're in a 12, 14 kind of team league, Grichuk's going to hit you some home runs. He's going to steal you some bases, and the Blue Jays are going to score a ton this year. I like Grichuk in an outfield position. He's going to play every day unless he gets hurt. So I think those two. And what do you think about their catcher, Jansen?
Oh, I was hedging on whether to talk about him or not. I'll tell you, here's the thing about Jansen. Last year he came up as I think a 23-year-old rookie, and you have to think coming up as a catcher, handling, let's face it, not the best staff in the world. It takes a toll on a catcher mentally and physically. This year he's used to that grind, and he can really go out and go all out. Now he has some batting skill. In the minors, he's a pretty good hitter. I really look for him pick the bat up this year and really live up to his development part of that side of his profile. I like Jansen. I don't want to start him.
Right. And we're talking about he's not one of the top 10 catchers. But if you're needing a catcher, and let's say they're playing the Orioles, and Tommy Milone is pitching that day.
Right.
Oh my gosh! I'm grabbing. Randall Grichuk, bring him on. Bring him into the fold. I want him on my team. So that's another team I think is going to score a lot of runs. And of course, we know the Yankees. We know the Red Sox. Can we talk about a team in the Central Division of that same? Oh, you love it, don't you? You love it. A team that you know is near and dear to my heart. They're not going to win this year. They're not going to win probably next year. But they've got some really good fantasy players in their lineup. The Kansas City Royals. I mean, you look at that team, and don't you see 4 or 5 players right off the start that you think, hey, I'd love to have them on my fantasy team. And you look down the lineup, and you know there's of course Whit Merrifield. He's gone. We can't get him. But who pops in your brain next, Chappie? Down near the middle of that lineup that you kind of like, that's going to drive in some runs, that can play multiple positions. Does the name Hunter Dozier ring a bell? What do you think of Dozier this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of he's the Nick Castellanos of in that of the Royals, in that he's moving. He's going to be playing the outfield. He's going to have that burden of playing the hot corner and first base taken off of him, so he's just going to have to play the outfield. I think that helps his hitting profile, because he's going to be able to relax at the plate and just drive the ball, which, he's shown. He's a little bit of a late bloomer, right? He didn't really come into his own. I think last year he was 26, was his first real, not real productive year, but full productive year, right? And I think taking him and putting him in the outfield and letting him say, a lot like they did with Lourdes last year in Toronto, just hit. I think that helps him a lot. So, yeah, I really like Hunter Dozier. And like you said, in that lineup, he's got good place setters in front of him. He's going to drive in a lot of runs there.
What's Minnesota? We've always dreamed of Byron Buxton actually playing like a major league player, right? We dreamed about that, haven't we?
Right.
We know he stays hurt or can't hit or both, and this year he's been hurt, and now we're hoping he's back. But there's a player on that team that you've mentioned him, I've mentioned him, that's really intriguing to me. And I'm not talking about the Nelly Cruzes. I'm not talking about the Miguel Sano's. We know the power. We got it. But how about Arias, who can play everywhere, who hits about 330, no power really, no speed, but he can flat. He's the Wade Boggs of our generation, right? What about him?
I always say it's Edgar Martinez. That's who I
I love it.
But no, I love Arias. Arias. I think that, again, it's another position flexibility guy. He played, I think, second and I believe third in the outfield last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, being able to plug him in, especially in the in a daily league change league, it really it adds to his value. But if I always say this, Arn, and I know you feel the same way. If you're going to go out and draft a guy who might be an average, suck, he might take away from your average, then a guy like Arias provides a lot of benefit. It evens out. While he might not give you homers, he might not give you a whole lot of stolen bases, he will hit in a part of the lineup where he will score runs. And he'll clean up runs as well. So I think he adds in both of those categories to kind of even out from where he takes away from home runs and stolen bases.
And the Twins, as you know, I guess we all know, the Twins led the majors in home runs last year. Which means whoever's on base when the guys Donaldson and Sano and the likes of them come up and hit the ball out, the table setters who are on are going to score a bunch of runs. Don't you see him scoring 100 runs this year if it were a 162-game schedule?
Isn't that weird to do that, right?
Yeah. But, he's not going to score that because we don't play enough games. But he could easily score 35. And that's a lot of runs in this season.
Right.
So, he's a guy who's drafted typically late, and what a steal he could be if he's there. And, of course, I think we've all drafted by now, and I doubt he's on any free agency wire. But I tell you, I got to talk a little pitching with the Twins because, I think their pitching stinks. You know that.
Right.
I don't like their pitching. I do like Rich Hill.
Yeah. Talked about him, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's another one of those scenarios where at the beginning of the year you wouldn't have taken him, right? But now you have a grizzled veteran, someone who is, going to keep you in a ball game, and that's the kind of pitcher this offense wants.
Let me give another ad real quick. Another ad real quick for the happy hour, just so everybody knows.
So Donkey Oki's asking over here on, I don't know if you could see the LennyMountainFantasySports.com chat room. Donkey Oki wants to know about Kenta Maeda. Your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on Kenta Maeda. I typically think a pitcher going from one league to another, it depends a lot on which league you're going to. I love the fact that Kenta has left the National League West and gone to the Central. Look, I think the Central Division will be ultra competitive, both National League and American, but I don't think it's because there are truly great teams. I think every team has an Achilles heel. And I think Kenta, with what he brings, the pitching knowledge, the winning that he was accustomed to in L.A., plus, he's a great talent.
The mindset, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great fit in Minnesota. I think Hill and Kenta Maeda will bring something to the Twins that they haven't had. Now, here's the question about this for anyone in the chat room or watching us. If you're a Twins fan, which I am not, the question is, okay, the Twins win the division, if they did, and they got to play the Yankees in the playoffs. The Yankees never lose to the Twins in the playoffs. Never. So, what do the Twins have to do? Who do they have to pitch to beat the Yankees to get to that next level? Does Maeda, can Hill and Maeda or some combination do that?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty clear, right? I don't think that the Stantons and the Judges of the world are going to struggle with that type of pitcher.
So
that's just me being honest.
Yeah, so we're talking about for fantasy purposes versus reality. For fantasy regular season, I think Kenta and Rich Hill are great ads, but when you get to the playoffs, I think it's the same old song, just a different feeling since you've been gone. I think it's that kind of thing for the Twins this year. Again, I don't think the Twins make the playoffs this year. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I don't think it's by any fault of their own. I just think the White Sox have run past them.
I agree. I was listening to, I forgot who it was, making preseason predictions. I've been talking about two teams the whole offseason, the Reds and the White Sox. Right. And I love what the White Sox have done. Now, I liked them much better a week ago when I thought Michael Kopech was going to be in the rotation. All right, so you don't have Kopech. But, Chappie, did you notice? I know the answer is yes. Did you notice how much better Dylan Cease pitched the last 6 weeks of the season last year relative to how he started the year? Did you notice?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, boy, there's some sour grapes there with me.
Because he's a Cub. Yeah.
Yeah, he should be. He and Eloy both should still be Cub. I mean, God, what a bad trade. But that's not what you asked me. What you asked me is about Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease to me is, I see your card. Actually, I have a Cease card as well. I don't think it's probably as nice as that one. Dylan Cease is one of those guys that, he's a lot like Brandon McKay. He has it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just when the light switch goes on, right? And I think, but with both of those pitchers, it's coming on this year. I mean, you're talking about two guys that are going to be Rookie of the Year candidates.
You've said this before, so I'm giving you the kudos for this, but I'm going to add a